Hey, Sami, how are you? Thanks for coming on the
Hey,
show.
Lindsay. Of course. No, thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled. We're counting up episodes here. We got episode 22, Behind the Builder. Sami here from Republic Crypto. He is the COO and head of legal. He is also a teacher at the Wharton School for blockchain, and one of the first blockchain crypto teachers that I've met or talked to. So we have a few questions in there about that. Excited to talk to him. Sami, I would love for you to start with an intro, anything you'd like to share about your background or your current responsibilities in your role. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, thanks again, Lindsay, for having me. I I mean, I think you covered most of it. At Republic, I head up a good amount of the operational stuff that we do on the crypto side, as well as had the legal team on the crypto end. So it's been a pretty awesome ride so far. I've only been with Republic for just under half a year, so it's a fairly new role for me, and we're working on a lot of cool projects. And as the viewership may or may not know, Republic is involved in a lot of different things. So we have a venture capital arm, we have our main republic.com fundraising platform, that does Reg CF, Reg D, Reg S type offerings, and then we have a node team that runs nodes, and then we have crypto advisory group. So we have a lot of different things that we're constantly doing and working on.
Very cool. Yeah, you guys do have a lot of arms and things. Um, and honestly, I would love to get right into the questions. I know the last time we talked a little bit about dreams and passions, and we'll start with passions. I would love to know what you are passionate about.
Within professionally or just anything.
How personal ties into professional, really anything you as a person. What are your passions? Yeah, we can start with that.
So I guess we could start on the outside and go in. Um, I'd say professionally, I'm really driven by crypto is something that's always meant a lot to me, and the ideas that are embedded in blockchain, in crypto, the ideas of decentralization, taking power away from centralized institutions where there is more opportunity for failure, more opportunity for corruption, or for altering those sorts of systems, and shifting towards a decentralized future that empowers the individual, that gives every person the right to and the ability to sort of control their own information, to control their own finances, to control their own wealth without having to rely on an intermediary, is a very powerful idea to me. And so that drives a lot of what or my interests in the crypto space are. I'm very passionate about the ideas of free speech, of other sorts of um, empowerment of the individual, ideas of freedom. So those are all things that mean a lot to me, and that's sort of driven my passion and foray into this space.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really clear. I'm excited to talk about your experience at Wharton and teaching, but we'll save that for a little bit. What motivates you right now in crypto in the industry?
I think there's a lot of positive encouragement. I think we've been seeing that there is a lot of growth. There are constantly new projects, constantly new things that are being brought into the space, in terms of ways that people are contributing, making things more efficient. And I think as we've seen, there is continuous improvement, continuous growth in a lot of the projects that we've seen, a lot of the technologies that are out there. Transactions are becoming cheaper and cheaper. We've made L2s more efficient. Um, so I think those are all fantastic things that are very motivating signs for me, and sort of give me encouragement that the industry is headed in the right direction.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And also in terms of your areas of specialty, legal, at least on my side of things, people are really interested in growing out their legal departments and compliance teams. There's a lot of professionalism that I feel is bleeding into the industry, which kind of helps with all of those things as we continue to grow and adjust. I like to look at the size of other industries. Like VC world has been around for like 25 years. Crypto's been around for like 10. It's kind of cool to think about in the grand scheme of things how young it is. It's a good reminder. And there's still a lot of areas of growth.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot. I mean, the more and more that crypto becomes, integrated into the general financial system, with the Bitcoin ETFs, the Ethereum ETFs, I think these are all, really positive signs that, crypto is here to stay. And
Mhm.
in fact, it's going to be the dominant way that people won't even know that they're transacting necessarily in crypto, or crypto is behind the scenes in terms of how transactions are being conducted. But I think, as we see more and more, a lot of these big banks are adopting crypto rails into some of the things. And I think one of the big use cases, of course, is foreign exchange transfers,
Yeah.
these sort of things. Which, if you try to send money to any other country right now, it's super expensive. I just had to send money to somebody in Europe while I was there, um, and the fees are astronomical. If you use PayPal, it's almost like 10% fees, I think, and Western Union is right around there too. So I think that we're going to get, as more and more people become comfortable with crypto and having crypto wallets, or that'll drive down costs. And then I think you'll see a lot of institutions, the MoneyGrams and PayPal's of the world, start to incorporate crypto rails into the way they do these transactions to lower their fees, and ultimately pass on, in theory, some of those benefits and efficiencies to the consumer.
Yeah, I really agree. And this is brings up an interesting point I talked about in another podcast as well. People in the US, there's not an issue right now. Like between me and my friends, when my friends ask me what's the use of crypto right now between you and I, it's like we have Venmo. There's no issue really. The pain point isn't as clear as it is if you're trying to send money to your friend from the Netherlands or something. Like
Mhm.
it when I was trying to do that, it was so annoying, and PayPal takes the high fees, and I don't log into PayPal that much, and it's just like it's all these touch points and clicks and password resets, and it's really frustrating. Another thing too is Polymarket is the biggest use case I feel like a lot of people are talking about right now. Just with the election, they're kind of hit a stroke of luck there with timing. Um, are you seeing any other major use cases? Um, like what is most exciting to you? Have you been keeping up with Polymarket at all right now?
A little bit, a little bit. But yeah, I think a lot of the use cases sort of going forward in industry, aside from, I mean, I think obviously the financial, um, markets, and some of the things that we talked about are going to be pretty big. But in terms of other use cases, I think there's a lot with identity. You know, there's a growing push towards decentralized social networks. I don't
Mhm.
know when we're going to get to that stage, but in
Yeah.
principle and in theory, I would guess that social networks will evolve to the point where you know people do hold some sort of economic stake in their privacy details, and whether it's their watch history, whether it's their comments or their likes or the ways that they contribute, um, you know they'll be able to start to monetize that information, or they'll be able to monetize when they do give information to an advertiser.
Yeah.
So I do think that we will start to see, advertising, which is one of the primary drivers of a lot of social media companies, but online advertising start to be linked, and begin to pay or compensate users of some of these platforms a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, and now that I think about it too, I love talking about corporate networks and how blockchain can help. Corporate networks didn't really have that much competition. They were the first. of their kind. And now it's interesting because this is the first, second wave of social networks that need to convince people to join it while also competing with all of the existing ones currently. So maybe that's a big problem because I agree. I don't really see why people wouldn't want to have ownership over their social networks that they're building. I just saw a crypto, like a really well-known crypto Twitter account, like shut off today. Somebody posted about it, and that's like your lifeline. If that's how you're communicating with everybody in your personal brand, I don't really. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to sort of some of the earlier themes that I'm passionate about in crypto. So I think some of the genesis of how crypto came about and its initial ethos is around anti-censorship. And when the government can just come and shut something down or decide that they aren't a big fan of something, or when there are corporate interests at play, I think those are anti-crypto values.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
and so for me, I think a big thing is that as you know more and more of these things are decentralized and there is no sort of core nucleus of people that can just take down. It's just like Bitcoin. You can't shut down Bitcoin. Like there's
Mhm.
no there's no country in the world, if they decided they wanted to shut it down, could actually shut it down.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll also start to see social networks evolve in that way, other sorts of entities. And as we get more and more of those things, I think the individual, more and more power in the social contract shifts towards the individual, away from the government or away from big corporations, which in a lot of ways do sort of dominate a lot of the social economic fabric and networks that we currently live in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see it change. And a little bit back to your role. When do you feel like you're most creative? And we talked a little bit about dreaming in roles and how to make things happen and strategy. When do you do this and how do you do it best?
In terms of when do I do the most streaming,
Yeah.
it can be hard at times when you're working excruciating hours, which over the last few weeks I've definitely put in some really long days and burnt the midnight oil. But I'd say, I mean, it's kind of cliched, but like right before I go to sleep, I find that to be like a really meditative time. Or when I'm driving, those are probably the two times when I do the most thinking about what does the future look like, how am I going to impact it, what sort of trends should I be researching or looking into more.
Yeah. Yeah, I people think some people say deep work is really good in the mornings. I agree with you. Feel like I have my best ideas like right before I'm going to bed.
The
Which
worst is though when you think of a great idea right before bed and then you fall asleep before you can
yeah, I
write it
hate that.
down, and you're like, wait, what was I thinking? Was that in
Yeah.
my dream or what?
You're like
So
developing it right as you yeah, I know.
yeah.
Absolutely. More about your teaching. So, what's the most important thing you feel about being a teacher?
So the main reason or the main purpose that I do the teaching that I do is for mentorship of the students.
Yeah.
And for me, like it's not, my career is not, I'm not an academic. Even though I've done some academic research and published a little bit, but the main focus, the main point of having this post is so I can mentor students who are interested in the space, guide them in the right direction, because a lot of these students are very hungry. They want to impact society. They want to do something, maybe in the crypto space, maybe not in the crypto space, but all of them are very passionate about wanting to do something. And so when you have all that unbridled energy, they sometimes just need a mentor, somebody who's a little bit more familiar with the real world, or has a little bit more practical experience, that can say, okay, hey, like you probably want to be focusing your energy here. So I'd say that that's definitely the most important thing that drives my purpose and my desire to have this teaching post.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's really cool to not only be around students that are this hungry and excited to learn, but also hear their perspective on crypto and blockchain because I love asking people that kind of loosely know about the industry what their perspective is. What surprised you most about the things they had to say about the industry?
Yeah, I would say that it's always interesting to see just the wide range of knowledge in a classroom. So this past year my class is about 50 students,
Mm.
and you know some people had an incredible amount of knowledge and knew maybe even more than I did about some aspects of crypto, even just coming into the class. And then there were others that didn't know anything at all.
Yeah.
And so seeing that and seeing how just over the course of a semester there can be sort of a great catching up that students who have no prior experience with crypto can suddenly become builders in the space is pretty remarkable to me.
Mm.
um, but I would say that just in general, there is, I think students as they learn more about crypto and learn more about its ethos, because a lot of people, when they're unfamiliar with crypto, they think, okay, this is just to help scammers or,
Yeah.
because a lot of its early reputation from maybe a decade plus ago, was used by a lot of black market and mafia types, and that was a good way back then to sort of stay you know engage in financial transactions without involving banks and all that. um, but I think unfortunately it still retains some of that image, but as soon as people start to learn more about its use cases, how it's being integrated into the larger financial system, that totally changes people's perspective. And I think they get very passionate and interested about it when they learn some of the things that I was talking about as the reasons I'm interested in crypto, the anti-censorship, the empowerment of the individual, those sort of themes.
Yeah. No, I really agree. And when people ask me about it, all I say to them is like, do your research because you're not going to listen to anybody else. You got to do it yourself, and at least the bare minimum, just to kind of like understand a base level of what's going on. What's the name of the class again? I don't know if you said.
Yeah, so it's called, I think it's like Legal Studies 2440, and
Mhm.
I don't remember the exact name of the class, but it's something like blockchain, um, you know, the technology, legal regulations and business of the way that it works, something of
Yeah,
that sort.
standard. Um, if you could wish one sentence for the students to say as they walked away, what would you want them to? Not about you or the class, but more about maybe like the takeaway.
That in the future, a lot of the systems that we currently use are going to entirely change to have blockchain powering them.
That's simple enough.
It's simple, but that I think that's the biggest thing. And that whatever industry they go into, whether it's healthcare, whether it's
Yeah.
supply chain, whether it's whatever it may be,
Yeah.
even law, there are so many different applications of how blockchain will start to be used in that industry.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. I've grilled you a lot. That's you very clear cut and dry answers though, and really easy to listen to. Um, I've got more fun questions now. If you could give advice to your younger self, what would you say?
Oh man, that's a good one. I've sort of lived a life of no regrets, and there's nothing really that I regret,
Love that.
except I think this is probably, I would guess, a common one if you have people in the crypto industry, but just don't sell ever. If you
Never,
can,
anywhere.
yeah, if you can avoid it, just don't sell.
Yeah. Fair. And these are two questions I ask all my guests. What's your favorite book?
So I really, really enjoy Russian literature, and my
Wow.
favorite book is it's a novella by Tolstoy, in which it's called Haji Marat, and people say that it was likely his last work, and it's about a Chechen warlord, in that time in Russia, um, sort of like a freedom fighter of sorts, and it's just a very raw exploration into his persona, and it explores all sorts of like very interesting themes. Just the Russian literature themes are all like very, to me, something that gets me going in a very unique way of seeing the world, and helps one distinguish what sort of things are really important in their life. So I really like that book and recommend it to everyone.
Wow. You speak Russian or are you reading it in
I
Spanish?
don't know. I read it in translated.
Wow,
Because,
that's cool.
yeah.
Really I've never even heard of somebody reading a Russian piece of literature. That's very cool. Um,
Well, Crime and Punishment is and Brothers Karamazov. Those are all that's Dostoevsky, which is kind of the other great most popular Russian guy. Those are fantastic ones too. And I think in the modern canon of any high school or university curriculum.
okay, cool. I haven't read them. I'm gonna have to look them up. I'm curious, Sammy, side tangent. When you're working a lot of hours and long days, how do you set a certain amount of time aside to make sure you're doing things for yourself, or do you just do it when you feel like you need to? Like, for example, reading.
Yeah, so I sort of bake in reading when I'm flying because I find that to be,
Yeah.
yeah, or traveling, taking the train, because I find that to be sort of like a dedicated time. You're in one place. You're not, obviously, when you're on a plane, you're not taking phone calls or anything
Yeah.
like that. You're not getting pinged as much. So you just have, the ones that have no internet, those are the best plane rides because you can just focus and,
Yeah.
but I'd say that's probably the primary time that I set aside to do that.
Yeah. That's cool. Um, Honestly, I really hope that planes don't figure out cellular because I think that's kind of on the future itinerary for the world. But I agree. I love plain quiet time. Um, and I got my last question here. What is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for you?
Yeah, this may be a little bit cliched of a response, but that it's definitely true. I mean, I'd say that in general, like my mom has probably been like the nicest person to me that I mean, I would assume that a lot of people's moms would occupy that place, but like specifically, I just remember it's like always these very like small things, but sometimes bigger things too that she just takes like extra detail in. And I remember it was probably my 13th birthday, you know, she had a total surprise for me, invited all my friends, um, you know, brought, I can't remember. I was like a big fan of um, just like a local sports team, and she brought some players from there. We went to like this theme park. I mean, it was just like it was amazing. Like every single detail, like my favorite colors were represented, my favorite you know cake from my favorite bakery. Like it's just all those small things, and it may not sound like a lot, but to a 13-year-old kid, it was the world, and she's continued to do things like that for me, and show me a type of love that I hope to show other people in in my interactions with others in the world.
No, that's really sweet. And I'm sure that her hearing that that is one of the most memorable things from your childhood probably would make her really happy because you realize as an adult how much something like that, how much effort that takes. Because like the favorite bakery and the favorite sports team and the colors seem small, but like all of those combined, it's a lot of, that's nice. Oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah, I'm sure that everybody who tells you like the nicest thing that anybody ever did for them, a lot more emphasis is definitely on those smaller details, just the thoughtfulness that somebody puts in rather than the mere amount of money that they might spend on something.
Yeah, honestly, I think almost every answer out of the 22 episodes I've done is something really small, like teacher giving them help in one, people, someone said
Yeah.
that somebody gave them free passes to the aquarium when it was sold out or something. Like they were waiting in line and somebody came up to them and gave them. Like it's the smaller things. It's cool. Um, Awesome. Sami, that's all the questions I have. I would love to give you the floor if you'd like to share anything about Republic, things you have going on in the future, places to find you online, anything. You have the last word here.
Yeah, I mean, I would just encourage folks who aren't familiar with the platform, go to republic.com, and reach out to me if you have, any questions, whether about Republic, whether about crypto, whether, you just want to talk about life, Russian literature. I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sami. I really appreciated our conversation today. You've got a cool background. The students are lucky to have you, and look forward to staying in touch and talking in the future.
Amazing. Best of luck with your work and with the podcast, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you around.
Appreciate it. All right, Sami, have a fantastic day. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Cheers.